Welcome to the Blindside podcast. You're with Steve Lamb and Mick Edgar, and the time has arrived. Round one is upon us. The off-season is over. Time to celebrate and get back into the footy. We'll be talking about team previews and news and a little bit of controversy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the NRL as we count down to the beginning of round one, where we see the Dragons and the Broncos go at it in Cogra. So it was a designated site for a tip. Probably still is in the minds of fans other than the Broncos or the Dragons. So should be interesting to have a look at the tips and previews for round one. And with that in mind, I'll say g'day to great mate and colleague Steve Lamb and see what he's got to say. How are you, mate?
Hello. Was that Seinfeld? Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Great episode. Great episode.
Hey, yo, how you going, mate? I'm good. I had a good pre-season last weekend without the footy build-up. I went and seen the best band out of New Jersey, that is Overkill.
Whoa. I know there's some a bit of smelly bait on that line, so I'll touch it. Second best band.
Nah,
so I knew you were on the cans, mate, but Bon Jovi still has that right to claim the number one for best band out of New Jersey. Then Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston?
Yeah.
Who's on the pills? Yeah, I had a good weekend seeing Overkill, and it was more fresh than Michael Hancock getting out of a tackle. So it was a good night.
Impressive.
Yeah, round one, baby. We're back. The NRL's back. Lots to talk about and lots of controversy, as you said, and it would not be the NRL without it.
So, and with that in mind, we'll kick off with Matt Lodge. So obviously that's a story on everybody's lips leading into round one, that this fucking thug is allowed to play after committing a serious felony in the US where he was jailed for 2 weeks. And he's obviously back in Australia. It's been a couple of years since his last first grade game. And he's signed with the Brisbane Broncos, and he's due to start tomorrow night in the front row against the Dragons. Now, there's been a lot of talk amongst the media and some players who've been on shows like NRL 360, namely Luke Lewis and Josh Reynolds, talking about the merits of whether or not Lodge should be allowed back in and what he's done to redeem himself in the eyes of the football world and of the public when it comes to violence against people and women and kids. So, you know, this is a really hot topic. Paul Gallen's come out and, as Paul Gallen does, wants to be the centre of the universe. But on this occasion, I've got to agree with him, saying that he lowered his opinion. Now, that's a thinly veiled comment to say, you're a fucking arsehole, mate. I can't wait to get up there and smash her. So, and I hope he cops it all year. I hope they sledged the shit out of this bloke and he's gone, because he does not deserve to be playing first grade rugby league or any type of professional sport after the crimes that he's committed. So he hasn't shown contrition or given an apology. I know there's going to be a show with Yvonne Sampson tonight where she goes one-on-one with him. He owes the victims $1.6 million in compensation from a civil suit, and he's yet to pay a dime. So he hasn't even looked. And if the Knights have offered him a room at $400,000 a year, and he's knocked that back to play with Brisbane, why isn't there some sort of payment or promise to pay plan in place where he's making restitution for the crimes that he's committed to the people he committed them against? It's just a fucking farce, and it shows to me the spineless attitude of Todd Greenberg and the NRL, and how much power Wayne Bennett and the Broncos wield in the NRL in this modern day and age. So, look, that's my saying. I'll hand over to you. You can get on your soapbox and have your 2 cents worth. So let's hear what you've got, mate.
Red Hill, they're like the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones for the NRL, and Wayne Bennett is Cersei. And look, the key word here in all of this, and this is a clusterfuck, but the key word here is transparency. And there's been none at all, from the Broncos, from the NRL, or from the media. The media's beaten it up this the last few weeks. Fair enough, I agree. I don't think, but that's because there's been no transparency from anyone. This guy has been at the Broncos for 15 months. Something I just learned this afternoon, because Bennett has come out in the media and said he's been here 15 months. If you would just follow this part-time, then you would assume that he's only just arrived there this off-season. and that's the only time he's been. He's arrived in the off season, and he's just rocked up, started training, ready to go. Okay. Now look, this guy's a grub. First and foremost, I'll say this, but the Broncos should have let the general public, like the media, know that this bloke has been there 15 months, and if there's been any programs or therapy, counselling, or whatever this guy's done, they should have let us know. As they've been saying on our NRL 360, Wayne Bennett's just come out and said, we've signed him because he's a good footballer. Today, Wayne Bennett is in damage control. This week, the Broncos are in damage control because the backlash has been huge, and hence why the interview with him on Yvonne Sampson on League Life.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, Ben Eichen was a little bit reserved in his comments about the situation, given his closeness to the situation and his relationship with Bennett. So obviously, there's no way he's going to come out and criticise Bennett on air. But I think from watching NRL 360, he looked like he wanted to say more than he actually did, but knew he had to bite his tongue and say less.
Well, Easter's coming up, mate. You can't enjoy the family roast when the father-in-law's got the shits with you.
Well, I mean, that's something they've got to deal with. But yeah, mate, look, I agree with everything you said. But what I will say about this situation is I don't think for those people who did know, or the media who knew, because I don't mind Paul Kent. I think he's one of the few journos in sport that actually has a bit of integrity. And he seems to have really good sources and contacts and calls a spade a spade. I don't think the media actually expected Lodge to be named in first grade. So I thought maybe they thought he was just going to be a depth player. But the moment we knew that he was going to start at number 8 for the Broncos, mate, it's big news because, like you said, there was no transparency from the Broncos, and they do close ranks. So when James Roberts he's been in several incidents up there. There was rumours about him and cocaine use. There was rumours about him and violence against a woman down at the Star on the Gold Coast. So there were certain things that came up about him. And there was also the salary cap drama that was just swept under the carpet. They had some bloke stand down as the proverbial scapegoat for what they did. But to me, this latest incident, it just proves how unethical the Broncos are, and the win-at-all-cost mentality that they don't have any type of corporate responsibility. They don't have any type of community engagement or responsibility there when it comes to what they think a good player should be made of, both on and off the field. There's so many fucking variables here that the Broncos have overlooked, and I'm not sure that this doesn't pass the pub test. So you actually ask the average bloke in the pub and think that this bloke should be playing footy, the answer is going to be an overwhelming no. And this is the type of incident that makes mums want to pull their kids out because they think, well, if the NRL is prepared to let thugs like this in who've committed this type of crime, we're all for redemption and so forth. But this guy hasn't shown enough contrition and remorse for his sins. So, in my opinion, the NRL had the obligation to block that contract from being registered. So, yeah, the Broncos tried it on. They got away with it. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with Todd Greenberg and the NRL for allowing this bloke's contract to be registered. He hasn't made payment. He hasn't apologised. And until such times as both those things have been rectified, he shouldn't be allowed to play. Full stop.
I always, not always. I'll go back to Russell Packer, okay? He had to go through a bunch of processes, and so did the Dragons, to get this guy back on the paddock. Like, he had to front the media. The Dragons had to front the media. There was transparency there. They were transparent on everything about his rehabilitation. There's been none of that with Matt Lodge. This is the problem. If the Broncos have been working with him and getting him counselling and help during this time, they haven't let us know. This is the problem. The Dragons were 110% correct in the processes to get Russell Packer back on the field when they signed him. There was a big blow-up about Russell Packer as well. But the Dragons were upfront, transparent, and they got the job done and got him back out on the paddock. And that guy has turned his life around. He's a full credit to him. I don't condone what he did either, but this is the difference. And Matt Lodge has not, and the Broncos have not, gone under similar processes. And like you said, it's Red Hill. They're a law unto themselves when it comes to anything NRL, if that lot.
Absolutely. And the last word I've got to say on this is... I'm not sure if that came through, but it was the line from
Yeah,
Arnie.
it come through. It
Oh,
come through.
all right, cool. Well, that'll be the name of this episode. So, now in a related topic, Todd Carney has attempted to resurrect his NRL career with the North Queensland Cowboys as a backup utility to Jonathan Thurston and Michael Morgan. And he's obviously would see some game time during the Origin period, given that Morgan is a shoo-in to be picked in the halves of Queensland. So Todd Carney could have his last roll of the dice in the NRL. But what we're hearing is that his contract won't be registered by the NRL. So they will block that based on his past misdemeanors. So obviously we had the bubbler incident, we had the speeding and the driving away from police and driving under the influence, and there was a litany of things that he did at Canberra, then went up to Atherton, and then came back and played for the Roosters, won a premiership with them, and then headed off overseas. So he's come back looking for his last. Obviously, he played a few years at the Sharks as well. Come back from overseas, looking to resurrect and get his last throw of the dice or roll of the dice with the Cowboys. But for some reason, so again, there seems to be a lack of transparency. It looks like Todd Carney's contract won't be registered. So why the double standard? I mean, it's the $1 million question here. So what do you reckon, Steve?
Well, Todd Carney's got a rap sheet longer than John Holmes, right? But it does not involve, and I will say this, three other players. It does not involve glassing his partner in the eye. It does not involve stomping on someone's head. And his rap sheet does not include going to America and threatening to kill people and bashing women. So, yeah, the guy's got a rap sheet. He's been a dickhead plenty of times. But if they're knocking him back and letting Lodge play, it's a massive double standard and it's just bullshit. Give the bloke one last chance. He's going to be a utility depth signing. It's not like he's going to be running out every week like Matt Lodge is. Or it's not like he's going to be running out every week like Greg Bird did after his incident.
Yep. Robert Louis. Like there's a litany of players who have committed far more serious crimes. I mean, Carney's probably committed more stupid mistakes than those blokes put together, but they still, in my opinion, don't amount to anything as serious as the level of violence that we've seen some of the players in the NRL over the past 10 years, and some of them still been allowed to play on. So, when Robert Louis was potentially going to be a signing down at Canberra, I mean, all the fans were disgusted at a potential signing like that, and rightfully so. The guy fucking jobbed his missus. Like, you don't allow blokes like that to be playing in its professional sport. It's such a bad look for the game. So, I mean, I agree with it. Massive double standard. And Greenberg should have shown some balls and stood up and said, it's either one in or all in. Not one set of rules that applies for the Broncos and their players, and another set of rules that applies for the other 13 teams, because I'll say I believe that the Broncos get the same sort of leeway that the Roosters and the Melbourne Storm receive when it comes to leniency and the way their players are treated. So, those teams have got some issues that I would think that always need to be addressed as far as things like player conduct, salary cap rorting, things like that, the sombrero, down with Uncle Nick. And that leads me on. Yeah, go ahead.
He was sacked from the Roosters for going to the pub and having a beer. He said he wouldn't touch the drink. So that's what got him sacked from the Roosters.
Yep.
He got sacked from the Sharks for pissing in his own face. So put two and two together here. The guy isn't. He's a larrikin and a dickhead, but a dangerous person he is not.
No, he's not a dangerous person. Look, I've never heard anybody speak who personally know Todd Carney speak ill of him as a bloke. And he had problems, obviously, when he was down at the Raiders, and that was probably the most serious breaches he faced. But at the time, he was struggling with the loss of his father. So his father hadn't long passed away. He took off from the cops with the crocodile hunter, was Steve Irwin, and he left him holding the bag. But in my opinion, there was Josh Dugan, Blake Ferguson, in the same boat, and they were far more belligerent towards the Raiders and their fans than what Todd Carney ever was. I mean, I still like to watch Todd Carney play. Dugan, I'm going to take him or leave him. Ferguson, a dipshit. But Todd Carney, I think he got his start at Canberra. He's a local lad. I would like to see him finish up at Canberra on a utility contract. He would have been a bit of a fairy tale for him, a good way to finish off his career if he's still running out in the green of the Raiders one last time. And I think a lot of fans would probably think that he's paid his debt to society in the fact that he was banished for a fairly long time. And obviously, he lost his license and things like that. But none of what he did ever deserved to be a jailable offence. Whereas Matt Lodge, the guy should be doing 5 to 10 years over in America, doing some hard time over there for that sort of stuff. And the fact that he got off with such leniency is just mind-boggling. I thought our justice system was soft.
Yeah, I'm amazed at that. I thought the Yanks had a pretty staunch justice system. Did he fly Chris Murphy over there to defend him or something?
I might have got Salim Maharaj's lawyer or something. Who knows? But speaking of the Cowboys and Todd Carney, Jonathan Thurston plays his 300th game on Friday night against the Sharks. So it's going to be a massive match. Obviously, the game of the round. And quite a milestone for Jonathan Thurston. I think he's only the 30th player to reach that milestone. So he's had career longevity while facing a number of injuries later in his career, and he's probably going to be in the talk as an immortal one day once he finishes his career. But has won a premiership with the Bulldogs and the Cowboys, and is not playing Origin this year, so he's got his whole year to devote to the Cowboys. So congratulations to Jonathan Thurston on 300 games, a great milestone.
Yeah, congratulations to him. I think if the Cowboys take the spoils this year, I think that'll seal the deal for him as an immortal. 2 premierships, dominated Origin in the modern era, and international football. Even though I don't think the international game has been as strong as it was in like the 80s or 90s when you talk about that, especially teams like England and that who have been rebuilding for like 15 years or even more. But congratulations, JT. There was speculation back in the day that he was a bit untoward, but he's obviously turned his life and career around. So yeah, full kudos to you, mate.
Yep. So now moving on, there's talk about the NRL playing games in the USA as early as next year. Obviously, this is something that was tried with Origin over 30 years ago, in 1987, when they played an exhibition match in Long Beach in California back in 1987. I think I remember that night. We might have been at the Newell's house for video night.
That was game four, wasn't it?
Yeah, in 87. So now it's an experiment. I heard Luke Lewis saying he thinks it would be a great idea. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that this would be executed as professionally as needed to be a success. They've got to decide on, if they're going to play it, they're going to have to play it in the middle of the American summer. So it's going to have to be a night game during baseball season. So they're going to have to pick their venue and the timing of the game pretty carefully. So if it's June, July, you're coming up in between the Origin period. It's also towards Independence Day, All-Star game in the baseball. So you can go earlier in the year, but it's going to be pretty cold, a lot colder than it is here if we're going in March, April. So I'm not sure they'd get the penetration they need to make this a success. Obviously, the NFL are doing that with games in London, and they've spread that around amongst all the 32 teams to go and play in London. And within 5 years, they'll probably have an NFL franchise playing out of London. Now, I'm not sure what the purpose is of playing an NRL game in America. Is it just exhibition? Because there's no way there's ever going to be a team based in the USA like the NFL is looking at for London. So are we looking to do it to get more of a talent pool, grow a talent pool through the universities? Because they play rugby there, so the transition to rugby league might be a little bit easier. So I'm not sure, you're going to grow the crowd, or is it going to be something because of pay TV and the internet that you can get them to tune in to? Is it a subscription thing for cable? Look, who knows what the purpose of this is, to look at growing the game in a destination that seems to me, on face value, like a massive waste of time and money. And who's financing this? Is it like the test between the Kiwis and the Poms in Denver in June, which is privately financed, or is this going to be something that the NRL is going to fund themselves? I don't know where they get the money from. And obviously there'd be a lack of transparency about the way it's done, because that's how the NRL operates. So to me, it's just got fucking disaster written all over it. So what do you reckon?
Why don't my thoughts are why not take this World Club Challenge concept they got where they get the NRL premiers and the Super League premiers together, and then they pick another one or two teams to play each other, so 6 teams in total, 3 from England, 3 from Australia. And in the time frame, it's right because it's pre-season England normally start a little bit early, don't they? But it's pretty much pre-season all round. Why don't they just take a World Club Challenge over there? This just makes it so much simpler.
I reckon that's a great idea because February's the quiet month because you don't have baseball hasn't started and the Super Bowl's just been played. So games played on a stadium like on grass, there's nothing going on. You only got the ice hockey and the NBA that are being played in February. So, mate, I reckon from a timing point of view, playing a game in late February would be ideal. So a little tri-series or mini tournament, having say the premiers and the runners up, and maybe pull another team out of the hat to go over there and have a 6-way mini competition over a couple of weeks would be a great idea. Good for your depth players as well. So give those fringe players a bit of a chance at playing rugby league on a bigger stage. And who knows? Like if you did that as an annual thing, you might actually build a little bit of tradition. But with the NRL, they don't believe in that sort of thing. So So I think you're spot on with the timing and how it should be executed, but for whatever reason, the NRL do the exact opposite and make a shit fight out of it. So that's that one. So I think there was something about who's playing fullback for the Dragons this week.
Matt Duffy. They've retired the number 1 jersey this week in honour of Changa.
Yeah, that's right. So he's wearing number 18. So if people are wondering why, obviously because they're looking to pay their respects to the late Graham Langlands. And they'll retire his jersey for this week. So I thought that was actually newsworthy as well. So now moving right along. So we're moving into the team preview. So Steve, you want to give us your thoughts on game 1 between the Broncos and the Dragons?
The Dragons and the Broncos at the Taj Mahal, Cogra, Skull's favourite hunting ground.
Arseholes convention.
Your mates. This shapes up to be a cracker. I rate the Dragons this year, as I said in the last episode or two. I think they've got a really good side. They've recruited polish, so to speak, in Hunt and Graham. Sorry, Peter, I just stole one of your lines, but they have recruited polish. I think this will go down to a 1-12 game. Although I'd love to see the Dragons pump the Broncos 13 plus. To be honest, look, my biggest concern with the Broncos is the halves. The side itself, they look pretty good on paper, and I
reckon their backline looks a bit average. I mean, Jermaine Asako, I don't know anything about him. Jordan Kahu, he's okay. Yeah, James Roberts, he's got the speed. Nikorima, I'm not sold on him either. Milford, he was a bit hit and miss last year, so I don't know. Like their forward pack looks pretty strong. Their bench looks average, and I reckon their backline is one of the weakest I've seen come out of Brisbane ever.
Yeah, no. What I was going to say is that the halves worry me. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of Cody Nikorima. I know he's played a fair few games for the Broncos, but is he the organiser that is good foil for Milford? Milford's a runner. He's not an organiser's asshole. So, this is why I didn't pick the Broncos in the 8, because I don't think their halves are going to be much damage. Milford will do some brilliant individual plays throughout the year. But, I don't think that halves combination is going to do much. But for this game, I'm playing it safe. I'm going to take Dragons 1-12 at home. I think they'll win this comfortably, but not too comfortably. I think the Broncos will put up a fight.
Yeah, look, mate, I agree with you on that one. So I'll take the next one. But yeah, having said that, the Broncos look like they'll struggle in this. I think the Dragons will aim up defensively, and I think they'll get the bickies in game 1 against the Broncos. So next game on the Friday is a game between the Newcastle Knights and the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. So it's a new look Newcastle team. They've gone on a massive recruiting run over the off-season and added half the Roosters side, which obviously is going to propel them, you would think, up the ladder and out of wooden spoon contention. So they've added Kalen Ponga, who's a big name signing that a lot of the Newcastle fans are pinning their hopes on. They've picked up Connor Watson, Mitchell Pearce, Herman Saesi, Jacob Lillyman, Aidan Guerra, so Chris Heinington, all in Knights colours, so in the red and blue for 2018. Tautau Moga, so I'm not sure where he is. Oh no, he's there. He's in the centre. Sorry, I forgot to mention him. Obviously, they look a lot stronger than what they did last year, and they had a lot of promising players coming through the ranks that were playing and giving 110% every week. So one of the things that I admired about Newcastle is that even though they were losing most games, except against Canberra, they were putting in 110% each week. And I think with a more polished-looking side in Pearce and Co, I think it's going to be a tough one against Manly, but Lachlan Croker is the new face that everybody's talking about, but I'm hearing that Jake Trebojevic will probably be playing a lot of second receiver in this game. So Joel Thompson has gone over the peninsula. He's left Dragons to join Manly, and you've got Curtis Siren in the back row. What's that? What's his name? Who's the guy that doesn't like Canberra, the centre? He's out injured. What's his name?
Manly. You caught me off guard.
Dylan Walker.
Dylan Walker. Yeah.
Dylan Walker. Sorry, I just had a vacancy there. It happens a lot lately. So he's out with an ankle injury. He's had surgery, so he's not back yet. Their backline looks pretty strong, and they've got a couple of representatives and potentially representative players in waiting, like Coruscant at number 9, who's a crafty and sneaky hooker, so he can do some damage close to the line. So it'll be an interesting game. I'm tipping the home side to get the biggies in a 4-point win. I reckon it's going to be something like 24-20, but the lead change could be each way, 2 or 3 times. But I honestly think that Newcastle will get a win at home first up and get off the slide straight away. And I think Manly will put up a good fight, but it won't be quite enough to get the win over the Knights. So that leads us to the next game between the Cowboys and the Sharkies, mate. You get this one. It's a good one.
This is going to be an absolute cracker. Even though it's round 1 and teams aren't really fully firing on all cylinders yet, this is destined to be a cracker. The only downside for the Cowboys is Lachlan Coots out. They've got Ben Hampton at fullback. Other than that, it's pretty much a strong Cowboys side.
I think Kane Linnett's out as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. They've got Javid Bowen in the centres. I've seen a bit of him last year and the year before. I think he's not bad. He goes all right. They'll be fine without Linnett. Up at home, I think this game could be very close. I think the fact that it's JT's 300th might get them home. Jordan McLean's debut on home soil for the Cowboys, and for the Sharks, new signings, Matt Moylan and Josh Hacksaw Duggan make their debuts for the Sharks. The Duggan. I think the Sharks are going to give these guys a run.
Oh, absolutely.
I know, Sharks are close to top 4 for mine, like we all said, and the Cowboys are pretty much nearly everyone's outright favourite, which might do them an injustice later in the year. But I'm looking at they got Tamari Martin on the bench. There's a bit of firepower coming off the bench there, as well as Cohen Hess, who's just a wrecking ball. But they've got Jason Tamalolo, and if they're down, they just give the ball to him, and he'll just probably barrel over 10 people and score a try or something. Yeah. Guy's a freak.
The real JT.
The real JT. Sharks forward pack. Fafita, Brayley. It does look good. It's a good forward pack. And the thing with the Sharks is, I think as long as Luke Lewis is out there, people talk about Wade Graham and Paul Gallen and the like. But as long as Luke Lewis is out there, the Sharks will win more games than they lose. That guy is their key, I think. He just has that brain, and I think he will. This could be a boil over, to be honest. The more I look at it, but Yeah, I don't think there'll be much in it. I think the Cowboys will just get home on the fact that it's Thurston's 300th. They'll find that extra inch.
Yeah, look, I reckon this is the game of the round. Delta Goodrum makes his debut for the Sharks as well, and a new fellow called Sione Katoa. Don't know much about him, but he's coming in on the wing. Valentine Holmes, so he was a bit hit and miss last year, so they'll be expecting a better performance from him this year. The one I'm looking forward to watching is Rudolph Hess for the Cowboys. So he's fresh from the Nuremberg trials, and he should give a good account of himself. So.
We're digging into Nazi jokes. How good is it?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but with a surname like Hess, just can't let it slide. So, mate, yeah. So now
the thing with the Sharks, sorry, before we exit that, if Valentine Holmes is struggling, they can just throw the Duggan back there or Moylan. Like I think the Sharks have just got a fair bit of depth all around this year. So.
Yeah, they look good. Take It Easy, who has left, I think he's gone to Brisbane. He's a loss from my opinion. He was a good impact player for them, and with him gone, their bench looks pretty strong. Seguiaro is a good bench player to come on and play a utility role. So and Bakuya is a solid interchange forward, so he always gives a good account of himself. So yeah, I think there's so many variables. The heat's going to be a factor in this game as well. But mate, like they produced two of the premiers from the last 3 years to kick off round one. So that gets top billing on Friday night, and rightfully so. Now,
another thing. Sorry, there was a talk of a cyclone hitting up that way around Thursday or Thursday or something like today, Thursday or something like that. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just something I seen someone post on Facebook. So
yeah, I think they've had a fair bit of rain recently, and not been pretty dry. I think it's called Cyclone Delta. So, oh, that was bad. So we're moving right along. We'll move to the probably one of the more dud matches of the round between the Tigers and the Roosters. Now, if you look at the teams on paper, you'd have to think the Roosters in an absolute canter. This is easy money. Take it to the bank. You look at the Tigers' backline of Lolohea, Corey Thompson, Roy Masters, don't know him, Kevin Nagama, Malachi Watini Zalesniak, and then you got the big halves pairing of Josh Reynolds and Luke Brooks. So old Garth, he needs to have a big season this year, I think. So he's come up short, and with Mitchell Moses heading to greener pastures at Parramatta, Josh Reynolds is there to pick up the slack. Reynolds will give a great account of himself because he's a passionate type bloke, and he never gives up. A little bit injury prone, but he still tends to play through that. Their forward pack doesn't look that bad. You've got Russell Packer and Ben Madalino, so two Kiwis up front. And Chris Lawrence, this is about his 40th season, so we'll wait and see how he goes. He's in the back row with Robbie Rockauer and Elijah Taylor at lock. Now, you've got the great Benji Marshall on the bench. He's about 60. So the rest, Michael Cheekham, old Raiders player who's been around the traps and never really established himself as a first-grade player, is also on the interchange bench. And when we go across to have a look at the Roosters, just go through the back line. Tedesco, Ferguson, Latrell Mitchell, Daniel Tupou, Cooper Cronk. And we go to the forward pack of Rhea Hargraves, Friend, Cordner, Orbison. You got Napa on the bench, who I think won't even see out the season with the Roosters. I think he'll go probably somewhere towards the middle of the season. He'll leave, possibly Parramatta, and an up-and-comer in Ryan Madison. So, they've still got Luke Keary on an extended bench, so he may well play. And they've got Reece Lightning Robinson, also on an extended bench. He probably won't get a start, but you have to think that the Roosters are one of the big guns, one of the top three, I think, this year. So I think they'll start with a win and give Ivan Cleary a very tough start to his first game, and very, very much a baptism of fire for 2018, given their first 5 rounds for the Tigers. Their season could be over by just after Easter. So, mate, then we move on to the Bunnies and the Warriors. So, over to you.
Well, the Warriors, what can you say? I mean, this game's in Perth. It's the first NRL game at the new Perth Stadium. And by then, Spanish would have went through about $300 in beer alone.
I'd get him about 4, given the prices over there.
Yep, that's what I mean.
Isn't he going to the yacht club first?
Oh, apparently, they'll be wearing jumpers around their neck and their old Western Force polos to this game.
Yeah, I can
I
see
don't know,
that too.
don't know if it's going to be cold enough for the tweed jackets to come out, but anyway, we'll see what happens. South should win this, I think, easily. But the Warriors are the Warriors. You can't. They're just a. If you're a tipping man and you need one game to get in your round, and you're depending on the Warriors, then you're fucked because these guys are just an enigma. You cannot pick what these assholes are going to do, and they've ruined plenty of tipping comps for me and a couple of multis back in the day. I won't touch them now. I refuse to touch the Warriors. Johnson, Gagai, Inglis, Jennings, it's good back line. Cody Walker, Adam Reynolds returns in half. Got Burgess, Cook, Nichols, Sutton, Crichton, Burgess in the forwards. And they got Murray, Fuemeno, Burgess and Totole on the bench. It's a solid South side. The only Souths look pretty good in the preseason. They impressed me, especially in the Charity Shield. Going up against State, they gave Dragons a good run, and I got the Dragons up high this year. So the Warriors, oh God, who knows? There's some talent in his side.
Oh, absolutely.
What they're going to do with it is you can't tell. I'm just going to play it safe. Like Tuivasa Checkers recently just re-signed. Don't know why his career's gone to shit since he's went over there. They got Blake Green. We'll see how Blake Green goes with Sean Johnson. It might be what they need. Peter Hiku in the centres with Solomon Akata. Isaac Luke, I think we've seen the best of him back at South, so I don't think he's done much at the Warriors, to be honest.
He's been overweight and injury-prone and massively out of form over there.
Adam Blair, there's a guaranteed 3 or 4 penalties for Souths right there.
Yep, thug life.
Tohu Harris, what the hell were you thinking? You left the Storm for this. Who knows? They could turn around and slap me in the face and have a big game and beat Souths, but I can't see it. I've got Souths 1-12.
Yeah, mate, I'm with you on that. You've pretty much covered off on everything I was thinking. The Warriors are just an enigmatic nightmare and a fucking tipster's nightmare and a punter's nightmare. So anybody who's willing to try and part with money and use the Warriors as a key to make it more, you're fucking rocks in your head. Give it a miss. We'll move on to...
Hey, just a sec. You timed this, so you could cover the Bulldog Storm game. You looked at the pattern. Bullshit. I know what you're up to. Here we go. I'm looking forward to this one.
I gave you the Dragons. You got the Dragons first up, so I didn't get to stick the boot in to them good and proper. So
yeah, because you were saving yourself for this one.
Yeah, mate, I've been drooling at the mouth waiting for this game. So we've got the Premiers up against the Mangy Mutts from Canterbury, also over in Perth. So by this time, the whole crowd should have filed out, and it should be just the playing staff, the playing players and the coaching staff left in the stadium to watch Canterbury play. So
and the yacht club,
yeah, and the members of the yacht club. So it might, because it's a bit later, it's 6 o'clock over Perth time, so they might have those tweed jackets with the leather patches on, because I know old mate Spanish, he's got a whole fucking wardrobe full of them. So. Look, you have a look at the Dogs' back line. I think Montoya is the best of those backs. So the Morris brothers, they've been around way too long. They had a lot of injuries in the last couple of years. I don't think we'll see much out of them in this game. You got Moses Maybe. Yeah, he's no certainty. And you got Will Hopewadi. So he actually was probably one of the Dogs' best players last year. Kieran Fraun and Sharon Woods make their debut, respectively, for the Dogs. So we'll see what sort of instinct Dean Pay's instilled into these blokes. And we'll see if we catch a sneak peek of Kieran Fraun at the local tab anywhere in Perth. Anyone can send through a picture and confirm it's in Perth. $100 straight up. You got Michael Lishow, who's playing for his life in hooker. Back row, Clemmer and Jackson look good. Fatala Mariner and Fu Arlo, not really sold on them. And the bench looks weak. Apart from Greg Eastwood, who has come back from a heart condition and has been cleared to play. Aidan Tolman, who's the NRL's textbook definition of a journeyman, and just probably the new age Nathan Hindmarsh of like third man flopping in, or like Sam Side. So he doesn't really offer a lot. I would expect going up against the Premiers, and you look at the back line that they've put together with Munster, Vunivalu, Chambers, Addo Carr, and then you go to the forwards, you've got Jesse Bromwich, Cam Smith, Asafa Solomona, who's going to be one of the best forwards to watch this year. This guy is a beast. And along with the sneaky good Felice Kafusi, their back row, Hoffman will come home from the Warriors, do the reverse of Tohu Harris, and probably have one of the best seasons of his life before he hangs up the boots. And one of the most underrated players in the game, Dale Finucane, locks the scrum. So yeah, they look, again, pretty strong across the park. And they've got Glasby, who's a pretty good player. And then you've got Kenny Bromwich, Christian Walsh, and Joe Stimson. I think the Dogs will give a good account of themselves in round one, but I'm not expecting them to have enough firepower to overcome Melbourne in the first game, given that it's away from home, so it makes the home ground advantage neutral for both sides. You wouldn't think that any one team has any particular advantage in this game, but based on the forward pack, and I think the bench is going to be the major difference between these two. I think once you take Clemmer and Woods off, there's not a lot going for the replacements that's coming on for them. And I think after that 25th minute where they start to do the interchanges, and if it's hot, could be earlier, I think the Storm will get the better of them. And any team that's got Cameron Smith, regardless of his age, is always going to be in the hunt in every game. So I think that the Storm will win comfortably by about 16 in this game. But it'll be a fight for 50 minutes.
50 minutes?
After 50 minutes, I think the Storm will get the better of it and run away with it.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but the Dogs have a good record against the Storm. They're like a bogey side. If the Dogs are ever going to beat the Storm this year, it's this week. Billy Slater's out. They've got Croft and Jacks in the halves. And I know that don't mean shit because Cameron Smith's there and that forward pack, especially with Asafa Solomona and Bromwich. Looking to see what Jeremy Marshall-King does as Benji Marshall's brother. So he's coming off the bench for the Dogs. And I don't know. I don't think the Dogs will go down easily. I think they will give this a good run. I think they've been pretty decent in the preseason. If Kieran Foran can fire, the world is their oyster for this game. But, yeah, you can't go past the Storm. History says the Storm always win their first game, first round. They've been doing it for years. And they'll be just being methodical and get the job done, I guess. But not by much.
Yeah, that's a fair call. So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Now we'll move on to the Panthers and the Eels. So a local derby up in round one. So a bit of a new look Penrith side with a lot of changes there against many considering a top four Parramatta side, mate. What's your thoughts on this one?
Well, if pre-season is anything to go by, and I don't like to go on it, the Knights, after they lost to Para, they turned around and said, mate, these guys will go close to win the comp. So the Panthers, there's been nothing but shit talk about, Brian Griffin and Anthony Griffin. Sorry, I thought I'd throw Brian Griffin in. But anyway, Anthony Griffin and the dramas there with the playing group, and then they're coming out and saying there's no dramas, whether Gus is on the tools too much or whatnot. But the Panthers side looks pretty good on paper. Whether it performs or not is a different story. How Maloney and Cleary go in the halves, they're going to need. I think they're going to need time to settle. But who knows? I think Para should win this, and I'm tipping it might be quite comfortably if all the speculation about the Panthers is true.
Yeah,
but then again,
go ahead.
It's an afternoon game, all right? So if Parramatta get on a roll here and the Panthers are still a little bit disjointed, like they have been in the preseason, the likes of Hayne, Jennings, Bevan French, I reckon Bevan French has been killing it in the off-season, and he's primed for a big year. We add that to the fact that Mitch Moses and Corey Norman have already had 6 months together as a halves combination. The only place I see the Panthers maybe having it over the Eels is in the forward pack. But if the Eels forward pack stands up to this Panthers side, I think Parramatta could do a bit of psychological damage to the Panthers this week.
Yeah, well, look, I tend to agree with you. I mean, any team that's got 4 players with hyphenated names is on a hiding to nothing. Wateni Zeleznia, Campbell Gillard, Harawira Nira, and Fisher Harris. What the fuck is that? 4 hyphenated names in one team. So is that just a trend-setting exercise in the modern day of the hipster and being politically correct that having a hyphenated name is going to score you more points? I don't think so. So look, I reckon that the Eels look good in the back line. I agree with you on the forwards. You know, Nathan Brown was a surprising player for the Eels last year. He was better than expected. Tim Manners getting very long in the tooth. Alvaro's not bad. I like their bench. Their bench looks good. Bo Scott, Takarangi, Matangi, and new signing from the Roosters, Kane Evans. I reckon they will get the cookies in this one, and they'll get it again based on the heat of the day and when the interchanges happen and how effectively they're used by old Chuckles Brad Arthur. So even if they won by 60, he still wouldn't smile. Oh, same with Hook. Griffin's the same. So, you know, this will be the battle of who's more morose at the post-match press conference. So, but
they're playing for the Sullen Cup.
Yeah, that's what we should call it. So, yeah, mate, I'm with you. I think Parramatta will get this one, and they, if Parramatta team to get on the roll, they're pretty hard to peg back, I think. So, it's too early to say Eels premiers, but I reckon they'll get the win here. Now that leads us to the last game of the little barn burner between the Raiders and the Titans up on the Gold Coast. So it's the late game on Sunday afternoon/evening. When you have a look at the Titans, they actually look a little bit better on paper than a lot of people expected. So Michael Gordon comes across from the Roosters. Obviously, he had a career with the Panthers, the Eels, the Sharks, the Roosters, and now the Titans to probably finish off his career. Anthony Don, underrated player. I like this guy. They've got big Conrad Hurrell, so another enigma, ex-Warriors player. So he brings a lot of bullshit to the game for the Titans. And obviously, new coach Garth Brennan will keep his eye on how Hurrell goes. Got Copley in the centres. Got the good halves, young halves pairing of LG and Taylor. And I don't mind the look of their forward pack. So Arrow comes down from the Broncos. Got Nathan Peat, Latu from the Panthers, Proctor and James, who's the new captain, and the new other Panthers signing, Bryce Cartwright. So bit light on in the bench. So Mitch Rain, Max King, Will Matthews, and Morgan Boyle, who I know nothing about. So they go get up against an established Raiders team that's been together for the better part of 3 or 4 seasons now. There hasn't been too many changes, and it's been a real roller coaster for the fans because they were out of the 8 in 14 and 15, finished second in the minor premiership in 16, were only a whisker away from the grand final, then shit the bed last year and were fucking terrible. They got 10 thumbs at fullback, Jack Whiten. Obviously, Nick Kotrick, he's the one I'll be keeping my eye on. The centre pairing of Croker and Leilua still going okay. Leilua needs to get the crap out of his game. Rapana should have another good season. You know, Aiden Caesar moving to 6. I actually like that move. I think it's a good move by Stewart. Sam Williams comes back for his 3rd stint at the Raiders and gets a crack at the number 7 spot. Got a new hooker. So this is a big talking point with Josh Hodgson out and Kurt Baptiste under the sombrero at the Roosters. So they've got Saliva Havili, who's the new player in town to fill the number 9 to start with. Now, that means that my mate Harvey Garvey is on the extended bench and he hasn't been given a shot at first grade this week, but I'd expect before the return of Josh Hodgson that he'll be in the number 9 jersey somewhere along the line. So you got Boyd and Paulo, probably needed to shed 5 kilos each and lift their intensity and their stamina to be more effective this year. Josh Papali, who apparently is looking very fit and raring to go. And hothead Joe Tarpany, who this guy has unlimited potential, but his temper always gets the best of him. In that Manly game last year, he gave away a penalty, but he needs to get his temper under control and come out with controlled aggression instead of sheer stupidity, because that sort of undisciplined play is going to cost Canberra games this year. I don't expect that they'll blow teams off the park every week, but if they're in the fight in close games, controlled aggression could be the difference between winning or losing. And you got Pommy, Elliott Whitehead locking the scrum. Blake Austin, big talking point. So he's been put onto the bench. Now, there is speculation that he didn't sign a contract to re-sign with the Raiders and he's off contract at the end of this season. So it could be that he's playing for his obviously rugby league life, and the Raiders could be lowballing him by putting him in at number 14, so lowering his contract value and his worth if he's coming off the bench. They got Luke Bateman as a solid workhorse, and Soliola in the 17. Dynamis Louis returning from an ACL injury. Don't agree with this guy on the bench. I think it should have been Charlie Gubb, Gubb, Gubb. He should have been in the squad on the bench and coming off the bench for this game. I think he is a guy who can provide a difference to the Raiders. And they've got a couple of players on extended bench. They've got obviously Gubb, Brad Abbey, Royce Hunt, and Harvey Garvey. So I'm expecting the Titans to win this until the Raiders prove otherwise. That all we've got to go on is the 2017 form and a shit showing against the Bulldogs in the trials. Then you'd have to say that in the heat on the Gold Coast, first round away from home, that the Raiders won't have their shit together. And Garth Brennan's Titans will get off to a winning start and at the expense of the Raiders. So I think the Titans by 6 in this game. It will be close, but I expect the Raiders to somehow fuck it up by doing something stupid late in the game.
Disagree. Massively disagree.
Why do you disagree?
I think Joe Tarpon is in for a massive year. I think Whiten's going to improve. We're actually going to see something out of Whiten. Williams has a good kicking game and he's an organiser. Caesar's going to be able to run for once instead of having to be first receiver. He'll be second receiver. We've got a more established back line and forward pack than the Titans.
Caesar's a geezer. He's a geezer.
He'll be playing in his natural spot, mate. He's not a halfback. He's a 5'8". Austin coming off the bench will add some spark. I think Austin will be the one to go into number 9 when Havili goes off. He's been training there in the off-season. I do agree with you on Dynamis Louis. I haven't seen enough of enough out of him to warrant him being picked over Charlie Gubb. But other than that, we've got a better bench. Like the Raiders got a better bench. 13 plus, mate. 13 plus up there. You heard it here first.
Oh, book it. Yeah, Louis, Dynamis Louis, he came to us from the Dragons, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think he had a stint at the Broncos as well.
Well, if he came to Canberra from the Dragons, he's obviously a mole and just sent in for a bit of espionage to fuck the club up from the inside out. So that's the way the Dragons players do it.
The Raiders look fit. They've lost weight. I think they're going to be a lot faster and a lot more mobile this season.
Well, they had to get off the Cairns and the KFC and fucking put in. Like they put in after they were eliminated from finals contention last year. Well, that wasn't enough, and 3 of them turned into big fat slugs playing for Samoa. Leilua Papali and Paulo went on a holiday at the expense of the International Rugby League when they were playing in the World Cup and contributed nothing. So what remains to be seen is how the team defends now that Dean Pay is gone, because the one thing that killed the Raiders year after year was their goal line defence and lack of speed off the line to just allow players to waltz through. Cooper Cronk used to have a field day against Canberra when he was running to their line. So unless they improve that one thing, and Jack Whiten can actually catch a ball, I think it's just Groundhog Day, wash, rinse, repeat. We're going to see more of the same. I hope we don't, but until I'm proven otherwise, I can't, with heart or head, tip the Raiders with any degree of certainty. Maybe against the Tigers, but if Marshall's playing, he'll kill us on his own anyway, like he always does. So, yeah, at this stage, until otherwise proven, I reckon the Gold Coast are good things. So, but, mate, you think they're 13 plus, the Raiders?
For sure.
I hope it comes true. So, I know one of our colleagues, Mike Stevenson, who runs the Green Machine podcast, he's I'll give him a plug, which I'm included in, but he's actually driving up for this game. So, he could be in for a long drive back if the pendulum doesn't swing the Raiders' way. So, now that's all the previews we've got, mate. Last word, you got anything else you want to add in? Anything about the Roosters salary cap sombrero and being able to fit in Kurt Baptiste for a rumoured $400,000 a year?
Oh, I don't want to say anything about Uncle Nick. Last time I did, there was a black car parked out the front of my house for 3 days. So, with a guy in an Armani suit and a pair of aviators just glaring me down every time I went to work. So, I want to stay out of that.
Did the car have City Ford plates?
It did, actually.
Say no more. So
yeah, there's a bunch of rules for like 3 or 4 clubs. Like there's rules for 3 or 4 clubs, and there's rules for the rest. Look, if they run their model. They get away with it. What can you do about it? Just got to hope that the underdog has their day.
Yeah, look, and everybody backs an underdog, so that's why teams like the Tigers usually have quite a parochial following because they've always been perennial underdogs. Same with the Knights. The Knights have always been seen as that working man's team, and because it's coal mining area and stuff like that. And then you got, the absolute shitbags that follow the Dragons, and who knows what they're thinking, and don't really care, to be honest. But they just deserve a kick in the balls every time I talk about it. So, based on that, mate, look, obviously it's going to be news between now and next week, and we'll be able to come back next week and do a review on all the games. And there's going to be some great talking points. You'd imagine there's going to be some injuries, there's going to be some suspensions, there's going to be the post-mortem on Matt Lodge's first game tomorrow night and what the fans actually think about that. So, yeah, I mean, it's great that footy season's back on. So the NRL is the gift that keeps on giving. The controversy, the coverage that it gets in Sydney. Like, I don't care about the Swans, GWS, the Waratahs, any of those other clubs, mate. Rugby league is the only game in town in Sydney and in Brisbane. So I think that now that the season is about to get underway, mate, there's a lot to look forward to. And I'll be watching tomorrow night's game with, throwing shit at the TV. I don't know who will be cursing more, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless. So, mate, anything more before we tee off?
No, that's it, mate. I've got nothing to say. I was going to bring a Brad Merv, John Rippon comment of the week, but I have forgotten it. So, next week, Brad, I will start including your quotes of the week into the podcast.
Yep. Great stuff. Now, we're podcasting through Podbean, and you can also find us on Facebook. So what we'd like you to do is leave us some feedback, ask us some questions, and if you've got any questions that you want to leave on the Facebook page, we'll come back and answer them for next week. So we'll read them out, we'll give you a shout out, and then between the two of us, we'll answer any questions you may have. If you've got any feedback, again, good, bad, or indifferent, leave it on the Facebook page. Tell us to get nicked or we're doing a great job. Mate, all feedback helps. It helps us create a better podcast and something that's a little bit different from what everybody else is doing. So on that note, we wish your team the absolute best, unless you follow the Dragons or the Bulldogs, then you can get fucked. But apart from that, we will see you. We'll see you next week for the Blindside podcast, and have a great week. Have a great weekend, guys. See ya.